Hey, welcome. If this is your first time here on the mic, where we talk about all things developing gratitude, growth, and healing. And without further ado, you know what we do.
Hey there, it's your girl Patrice Stokes, radio and podcast host, therapist, poet, photographer, and published author. Yep, that's me. I'm excited to welcome you to the all new Therapy Thursdays with Therapy on the Mic, brought to you by Inspired on Purpose, where our mission is to inspire people to see themselves through a different lens to discover healing and their God given purpose using therapy and photography. Each week, we are here to guide you through the journey of developing gratitude, growth, and healing, no matter what season of life you're in. Join me live every Thursday for an interactive Q&A with me and our special guests. You might even win some awesome prizes. Miss the live show? No problem, I got you covered. Replayed on Spotify and check out inspiring clips on all my social media platforms. For even more exclusive content like behind the scenes interviews, courses, and resources, consider our monthly membership. Sign up for my email list at www.inspiredonpurposeservices.com and follow me on all platforms as Inspired on Purpose to get in on special offers, discounts on therapy and photography services, and merch like my recently self-published 3-in-1 transformative self-care journal called Gratitude is Always in Season. Get more details for all of this in each episode description. Don't forget.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. What's up, y'all? How's you doing? I see people already joining in the chat. Welcome to another uh, episode of Therapy on the Mic, sponsored by Inspired on Purpose. Tonight, I've got some amazing guests on here. I want to give a quick shout out to some folks that I see on here already. Shout out to Lynette. Looking forward to this. I see the speaker box on here. What's up? What's up? Again, if this is your first time, make sure if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is Inspired on Purpose, and make sure to hit that notification bell so you can stay up to date with all
Right
of
back
the
to Asia for the next round.
and anything else that we have coming up. So tonight, before I share about our special guest, which I'm so excited to have on, Miss Evelyn Rai and George Middleton, who I met ironically through two different avenues, but they merged themselves together, which I definitely believe that was just God's ability of doing. I want to share a little bit about what we are doing this evening and the series that we're working on this month. And so, for those of y'all that don't know, this is Women's History Month. So, shout out to all the powerful women around the globe that are doing amazing work. And I want to encourage you to continue to keep striving, keep going, even when it's difficult. So, tonight, I hope tonight's session will not only be inspiring to you, but also remind you of your wealth, your worth, and really your wellness. And that's also for my brothers too. So don't turn off because this is for you too. But tonight we are doing a powerful series and throughout the month of March called "Springing Forward: Healing, Growth, and Whole Life Wellness." And then particularly tonight's episode is about releasing what no longer serves you. For those of y'all that don't know, George Middleton is not only a licensed therapist, but he is the founder of Deconstructing Race. Evelyn Rai is a vocalist, a vocal stylist, a speaker, a founder of Sacred Maps. And tonight you're going to hear a little bit more about not only what they do, but even how important it is to this particular topic of how all of these things combine together. Again, just to give you a little background about Therapy on the Mic and what we're here for, my name is Patrice Stokes. I am your host of Therapy on the Mic. For those of y'all that have been with me over the years, we made some switches to the way that we do Therapy on the Mic. Particularly, one of the things that we did this year was to be able to give more space to be able to dig deeper and to have more intimate spaces. And I do that through a program called Building with Purpose, Mind, Body, and Soul. So shout out to my business partner, Nicole Garrett of Don't Stop Living Wellness, and combined our efforts together, her being a certified holistic nutritionist and also licensed therapist. And the whole idea was to see the connection between nutrition and mental health, and understanding that our wellness is all centered around that. And then, of course, we have community partners that we work alongside of to help people with overall wellness. But not only am I a therapist, but also a poet, a speaker, and also the founder and CEO of Inspired on Purpose and co-founder of Spoken Word Elevated. So shout out to my hubby Lamont Stokes, who is the co-founder with me in Spoken Word Elevated. And I'll share a little bit later this evening, a little bit about a annual event that we started last year, but we are bringing back this year by popular demand, called Keishan Conversations, where community meets healing and good food meets the soul. And so we'll talk a little bit about that, and you can learn more about that on my website, which is www.inspiredonpurposeservices.com, where you can now officially get tickets. The event is on Friday, March 27th from 6 to 9 p.m. Details of location and all of that is, oh, okay, on there. So give me one second. Make sure we're good. Oh, okay, we're good. All right. And just real quick, just to make sure that I know that y'all are vibing with me, if you can put a thumbs up. So if you are on, whether if you joined in from my website or if you joined in from YouTube, if you can just put a thumbs up or hearts, anything, so that way I know that y'all are vibing with me. You're here. You can hear me well. So I see a couple of comments on here. Okay, hi, Sylvia. I see you. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Awesome, awesome. Appreciate y'all for coming on here. And then also too, again, as we go through this series, a couple of things that we're gonna hit on tonight in honor of Women's History Month. We're centering conversations that explore emotional wellness, identity and culture, community healing, and the courage to grow beyond what no longer serves us. No longer serves us. And so, as we think about what does that mean, or what does that look like when we're releasing what no longer serves us, we are talking about developing a new season. For those of y'all that don't know, officially 2 days from now, we're about to experience daylight savings time to any particular areas that you are in that actually honors that. So, springing forward, which means that we lose an hour, right? Even though I feel like that's really just a mental thing. But we lose an hour. So, spring our clocks forward 1 hour. And so, there's this idea of all the things that have been dormant because of the snow and the cold is now coming back to life. And so when we think about that, what is also coming back to life, or what has been lying dormant, or maybe just kind of like died off, during the season of winter. And so we got to think about our emotions, we got to think about our stress. What are unrealistic expectations that sometimes during the winter time, as we're trying to get back into the swing of things, whether it's in our health, our exercise, or even just narratives, inherited narratives that we've been just living or bogged down by, or even burnout, trying to be able to not live up under other people's expectations, but living into the full self of who you created and purpose to be. And so tonight we'll have some questions for our special guests around these topics, and even in their particular areas of expertise and how they focus on these particular areas. But I want us to also, again, shout out to all of our special sponsors tonight. I want to give a special thanks to Speak On It Media, The Speaker Box, Spoken Word Elevated, Leo's Alkaline Water, Be Well Therapeutic Massage Spa, Carlin J and Associates LLC, Don't Stop Living Wellness, Building with Purpose, Mind, Body, and Soul, and the Idle George Museum. And if you or someone you know is interested in being a sponsor or wanting to be a vendor or a sponsor for our event on March 27th, make sure to check out my website for more details. And I'll put the link in the chat here. But with that being said, let's start off with our moment mantra, shall we? Okay, so tonight's mantra is I release what no longer serves my healing, my peace, or my purpose. That is the mantra tonight. And our moment mantras are all about making sure that even if we don't feel it, even if we don't see it, even if it doesn't seem like it can be possible, the ability of us being able to speak these things in a way that not only helps us to motivate our words into action, but also to continue to say them until they are true. And this is my hope for myself, for you tonight, for my guests, and for anyone that listens to this on the replay, is that again, the mantra moment is I release what no longer serves my healing, my peace, or my purpose. So when we sit into that moment and we think about what does this mean, because sometimes growth is not about adding more things to our lives, sometimes growth requires letting things go. So research from American Psychology Association shows that chronic stress and unresolved emotional conflict significantly increases risks for anxiety, burnout, and physical illness. Did y'all know that? So, what did we do with that? Learning how to release emotional burdens isn't weakness, it's mental health maintenance. And so, tonight, I want all of us to take a moment, wherever you're coming from, whether if it's work, taking care of kids, cooking dinner, meal prepping for the next day, you just had an argument with somebody, wherever you're coming from, I just want us to take a moment and just take a deep breath. Okay, so on the count of three, I want you, if you are sitting somewhere, we're going to do a quick grounding exercise to get our hearts and minds prepared for what our beautiful guests are going to talk to us tonight about. So close your eyes, take a moment, and then I want to count to three. Take a deep breath in. Ready? One, two, three. Deep breath in. Deep breath out. Deep breath in. And then blow out whatever has been weighing you down today. Awesome. So as you take that deep breath out, I want you to release what no longer serves your healing. So tonight, I want to introduce to you not only some beautiful souls, but tonight I'm honored to welcome two incredible guests who are doing powerful work around identity, healing, culture, and courageous dialogue. Tonight, first, we have George Middleton, who is, as I mentioned before, a therapist, consultant, author, speaker, and a musician, and the founder of Deconstructing Race. His work examined race as a social belief system rather than a biological fact. And we just talked about that during Black History Month, so make sure that you go back to some of those episodes. It's exploring its profound impact on mental health and society. As the creator of Deconstructing Race magazine, he facilitates courageous conversations, helping communities and organizations challenge inherited narratives and build sustainable unity. And Miss Evelyn Rai Blunt, she is a beautiful singer, vocalist. She is a public speaker. She's a community advocate whose work lives at the intersection of faith, music, and public mental health. She blends gospel, jazz, and neo soul and has shared stages with artists including Michael Bublé, which I love, CeCe Winans. She is also the founder of Sacred Maps, which addresses collective trauma as a public mental health issue through faith-centered healing spaces. So without further ado, I want y'all to give it up. You're going to put some hearts, claps, emojis, whatever you want to do in the chat. Give it up for Miss Evelyn Rai and George Middleton. Yay! Hold on, y'all. Get y'all stuff real quick. Yeah. Welcome. How are y'all doing?
Doing good.
After an introduction like that, we are riding high. This is history in the making.
Yes. Yes.
Yes,
So,
yes.
you two have accomplished so much. And again, our connection, I think initially, ironically, it was funny, George, I was having a conversation with Nicole and she was like, you need to meet this guy. And she was telling me about you and not knowing that I already knew you. But I was like, this sounds like a pretty cool guy. And then we started talking and then before we knew it, I was like, I know George. Wait a minute. And then ironically, Evelyn and I met at, again, it's funny how Nicole and I end up getting connected to each other's equals, right? But Nicole invited me to an event at Martin University, and and it was it your sister?
Uh-huh. Anita.
Your
Yeah.
sister, she
Mhm.
was a vendor, and we got connected, and then pretty much the rest is history. And then ironically, last month, was it last month or the month before last that you all had your event?
Last month.
It was last month. I feel like this
Hmm.
year is going by
I
really
know.
fast. And so last month, you all had an event which was the racial deconstructing event, and I would love for you two to talk about that and even how you two got connected in that way. But that was kind of where like all of our powers connected, and just even what you all do, it even when we're talking about this topic tonight about letting go of what no longer serves you. I would love to hear a little bit about more what you do and why this is so beneficial, even in this particular season that we're in.
Well, I'm going to let the queen start and set everything up.
He says that to me all the time. Okay. Well, first of all, Patrice, I just, you are an amazing woman, and I'm not flattering you. I was so impressed with your presence when I met you while we were there at Martin University. And we had another encounter, but timing is everything, right? And so, it was just a pleasure to meet a woman who is committed to her purpose and cause. And then we saw each other out at First Watch, right?
Mhm. Yep, and you
Have
was looking
exactly right,
fly
right,
too
right.
with your
And
African garbs.
girl, I was in that, just got to stay close to mother. So anyway, so you were just a presence even there. So you carried that with you. And then as I was just learning more about you, your social media platforms, and just seeing the things that you're doing, I'm honored to be here today with you and to share this space. And thank you. Thank you so much, Patrice, for giving George and I this opportunity to be on your platform. We have a particular synergy, you, me, and George, and the things that we're doing, and we're going to build on that. And I'm looking forward to that. I am here because about 3 years ago, I met a gentleman, but I have a whole George Middleton story that I won't go into for the sake of time. But let's just say some things are just meant to be, okay? But when I first became aware of George Middleton, I was at a business networking event with my sister Anita, who you saw that night at Martin University, and her husband, my brother, and we were there for business networking. And George happened to be the musician that night, and I think he was on the board of the Indie Black Chamber at that time. And so we were networking, but I saw him in the room, and he's playing this music because you said he's a musician, and I was like, oh my goodness, I gotta sing with this guy, right? And I'm nervous and getting big fan girl, just a hot mess, right? And my brother's like, "Don't give him your card," and I was like, "No, no, no, no." But anyway, long story short, I finally did get some courage. We did connect, and then Anita was out at one of our clients, and she told me he was there, and I was in Castleton, and he was in Avon and Brownsburg. And I just whipped the car over and went out there, and as they say, the rest is history. He allowed me to
Yeah.
come up and share in song, and it was just magic. And so we've been performing as artists together. But he's a deep thinker, and he began to share with me some of his philosophies about our concepts of race and how we internalize those things and how it is affecting us. And this was back, I think, right after the whole DEI thing. So I'm going to let George take that lane. But suffice to say, we've been playing around the city together. We've been growing together. And for the last 3 years, his knowledge and wisdom and understanding of where we really are has impacted my life and caused me to shift. And so with that, I'm going to pivot over to my brother, friend, Mr. George Middleton.
Yes. And so I am a therapist, and I speak more in clinical terms on and the magic of the relationship between myself and Evelyn is that she can interpret for me because I speak in ways that people are going to look at me and say, now, how much longer can I take this guy? Because I'm getting ready to check out. So it's been a great relationship. And the topic that motivates me, it's not ideology based, it's not religion based, it's not opinion based. it's evidence based, and the all the facts are in. Race and racism have a direct impact on our psychological well-being, and we are at critical terms with this right now. And if you just look at your political landscape and what's going on in this country, it's no mistake that race is at the foundation of all of our problems today. One of the things that I always say is not everything is always about race, but race is in everything.
Mm,
And the problem that we have is that we're not educated enough about race to know when race is involved and when it's not. So I created this concept. It's actually an intervention, and it is called racial deconstruction. And the reason it's called racial deconstruction is because race is a social construct. And one of my mantras is that anything that can be constructed can be deconstructed. And deconstruction is not about telling people how to think, what to think, but in just encouraging people to think. And once you turn that thinking cap on, especially as it pertains to race, because what people don't understand is race operates in the subconscious. And you don't have to be intentionally racist to have racist outcomes. And the most impending group
that, yeah.
that is in need of tr- of tr- of the most the group that's in most danger right now specifically is the black racial demographic. But don't get it twisted. Race is also impacting the white racial demographic. It just looks different because the labels serve different purposes. So hopefully we'll be able to get into some of those dynamics, especially on this theme of Women's Month. And, you know, race has a unique impact on women's perspective, women's development, women's perception of themselves and each other.
Mhm, mhm. That's good. That's good. And one of the things too that, as we're entering into this next segment called uncomfortable conversations, anytime we have these conversations around race, gender, any of these things, right? They're uncomfortable sometimes because it's the things that right now are causing us to feel divided and are dividing us. But also, like you said, wherever there's deconstruction, right, you can reconstruct those things, or or wherever there's reconstruction, you can deconstruct it.
Hmm. Right,
And I think
right.
that that's one of the things that I feel like we have to have those conversations about, because when we think about burnout, when we think about stress, anxiety, right, it's because these layers that are causing us to be impacted negatively are not being talked about. And when we don't have safe spaces like this podcast or other places where we can talk about how it is impacting us without judgment, but be able to ask the questions so that we can get understanding and knowledge. So that way, that knowledge is what heals us and turns into wisdom. That's where we can really find the freedom, really, that all of us, no matter what your ethnicity or background is that where we can truly find the freedom and unity. And so, this conversation around being uncomfortable is important. So, when you think about this, so both of y'all, let me ask you this question. So there's a statistic that says, according to the World Health Organization, burnout is now recognized as a syndrome resulting from chronic workplace stress that has not been successfully managed. But what burnout doesn't only just come from work. It can come from family expectations, cultural pressures, identity conflicts, societal narratives. And sometimes the bravest thing that we can do is ask ourselves, what am I carrying was never that was never mine to carry? So, what does that mean to you in the work that you do, or even personally? How do you perceive that, or what does that mean to
George?
Well, the one of the studies specific to burnout is the impact of racism. For those who are living the Black experience, the constant having to live in reaction to. You have to measure all of your environments, all of your situations, whether it's work or whether it's recreational, whether it's just you're out in daily society. If you're living the Black experience, you're perceiving things through that Black lens, and that's almost always in a reactive manner. And when you're always reacting, that's a stressful place to be, because the experience of being in constant reaction wears on you, and it contributes to hypertension, high blood pressure, diabetes, all of the negative things. From a health standpoint, the Black racial demographic is in last place on every quality of life social metric, social determinant of health. So, and it's directly attributed to the daily experiences of racism that we take for granted. We've normalized an abnormal situation.
Yes.
Let me read
And
I love
let me
it.
read one thing real quick.
Repeat that
Just
one more
I'll
time.
read it off the
Repeat that
research.
one more time.
Say that
Hold on.
again.
Repeat that one more time. You said we've normalized.
We've normalized an abnormal situation.
Hmm. Can you break down
We
a little,
live
little
in
bit
a
more? What do you mean by
we
that?
we we, we live in a constant state of normal dysfunction.
Mm,
Our dysfunction is our normality.
mm,
And we make jokes about it, we make movies about it. That crazy uncle. uh we have, a lot of most of us have somebody who's incarcerated or who's been arrested, who was a drug addict. All these things that you think is just normal stuff, when you look at the research, we show up in disproportionate numbers in all of these negative, dysfunctional aspects of living,
mm.
and it's normal for us. I am
Come on.
somewhat. I consider myself somewhat intelligent, although people that know me would question that. But I consider myself somewhat intelligent, kind of a normal guy, so to speak, right? But every now and then, I will shock somebody's perception of me. Like last year, one time, the person asked me, "So you've never been arrested?" Now I've never been arrested. Knock on wood. But the fact that he was shocked that somebody
Mm,
like me, that looked like me, never been
right.
arrested. You see what I'm
And
saying?
just
These are
because.
things that go under the radar, but now I've got to try to interpret that and say, why would he even ask me that question?
Right.
Right?
And even imagining what that does to your psyche and even how that could traumatize you, and not realizing that something that's asked, a question that's asked like that. Like I remember when I was in college, I studied abroad in Australia, and literally I had folks there ask me if I ever held a gun before, if I've ever been in a drive-by, just because
Mm-hmm.
what was normal for them about America was watching Jerry Springer. And, anybody that looks like us on that show, that
Right.
was a normal dysfunction, and that was their idea
Yes.
of a Black American, and so I had to figure out, without cussing at them, how to have the conversation, educate, but also, uh, deal with my own frustrations internally because I couldn't tell them or express to them everything that I was feeling because I didn't wanna become, um I didn't wanna become like the stereotypical Black person that sometimes I think people ask questions like that expect from us. Um, so yeah, but
And
yeah,
and
that's great.
and when it comes to burnout, the three things that we've normalized are constant vigilance, where we feel the need to monitor our own behavior, our
Mm,
speech, how we look. constant. We're always measuring, because we're going to go out here. We're trying to be successful. We're trying to survive. The second piece is frequent exposure to bias. Repeated incidents, bias are repeated incidents of discrimination, which increase that strain. But we take it for granted. We just take that for granted. And the third and most important one is lack of psychological safety.
Mm.
And we're constantly in environments where racism is full in effect, where we have spidey senses, right? If you live in a black experience, your spidey, and especially if you're a woman, and I'm trying not to sound chauvinistic, but you all have a sixth sense. We don't have to say stuff for y'all to know it. You already know it. You already feel it. So for you, that lack of psychological safety is on steroids because you just feel things when you walk in a room or when somebody's talking to you. It's your survival. You had to, you know. So these are things we've normalized, and it takes a toll over the lifetime of our experience.
Yeah. Now, to that point, I want to ask you this question, Evelyn, because he did bring up a good point. I think being a woman, being a black woman, right? As we talk about black, well, if I say Black History Month, it's always Black History Month. But as we talk about Women's History Month, particularly when we think about marginalized populations, women are in that population, but it's even more marginalized and even more. There's more levels of oppression. Um, and when I think about those things, the thought that comes to my mind is how do we recognize when we are carrying too much emotional weight? And as a woman of color, and all the things that you do, how do you recognize that? And then how do you resolve that?
Oh, very great question. How do I recognize it? Wow. You know, growing up, Big Mama was everything. If you had a Big Mama in your family, and if you talk to so called black people, you understand Big Mama or Grandma, right? I grew up in a family of strong black women, and that growing up was an epitaph to me, but that was something proud of to be of. Okay, coming from women who could just handle it, and it's like no matter what you gave them, they did it. You know, we and they might get down, but they got back up, and so I saw women carry things, a lot of things they weren't even supposed to be carrying. A full household, working two jobs. We had the movie Claudine. We had movies back in the 70s that taught us about our struggle. And some of those movies were black exploitation for sure, but we were up in color seeing ourselves, almost the sickness of it, right? And so our mothers literally worked themselves to death. How do you recognize it? Because you cuss a lot. How do you recognize it? Because you fuss a lot. How do you recognize it? Because you're harsh, you're sharp. How do you recognize it? Because you're tired. You know, we're tired, right? How do you recognize it? Because you don't get to find that feminine side of you. Now we're hearing terms like, let us lean into our soft. Well, where was the
Yes,
soft
come
side?
on, soft
You,
life. Yes.
what's the soft life? What's soft life? That's foreign,
Like, define that for me. I have not experienced that.
we don't know that. And so now our daughters and granddaughters are traveling more than our grandmothers ever did. They're going to different places that our grandmothers could not have even imagined because they lived under, as George is talking about, a construct that made them have to use their spidey senses and always be on the alert for that protective mode, because you never know when somebody might have rolled up on you, your son, or your home, and just started taking care of business, right?
Right.
So how do we recognize it, and what do we do? Well, we have to shift how we think. When I came through my trauma of burying my firstborn son, that weight of grief caused me to be still for about 5 years. There are traumas. A lot of us women, especially, we've never even dealt with our trauma, even as a child. Even if we were many girls, there's a line in The Color Purple. Uh, uh, Oprah says it, a woman ain't safe in a men's full of a girl ain't safe in a family full of men's, you know. And so we've got issues that are so deep
Yes.
embedded in us that we don't even know how. George said something else. It's normalized. We grow into this thing as women coming up, especially young black girls. You better handle your business because ain't nobody got time for you. If you started crying, folks picked on you. And if you come from family, we laugh and talk and down on you. You couldn't be weak. You couldn't show that. And God help our men and our sons. They really, girls, we can get together and cry and talk and cuss and fuss and get back together and get in the word of God and go to church, sing in the choir and be all right, right? But our men, what did our men do? We saw a lot. They drank, they drug, they left. They just couldn't take the stress, or God forbid, they found a nefarious form of life, and ultimately the streets took them. So when you recognize it because at one point in time there's that one trigger that makes you stop and go, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah. I love that you said that. And I think, again, it's being self aware. I think that's a big part of being able to recognize when we are carrying too much. I can think about something recently where I'm very aware of who I am. And when I start feeling like I'm starting to, you know, take a detour, when I'm starting to shut down. And I had to have an uncomfortable conversation uh, that led to being able to, in a sense, open can of worms. But I also realized that if I held that in, and I think as women, right, as women, we tend to hold things in for sake of quote unquote keeping the peace, when in essence, it doesn't keep the peace. It actually creates more chaos, more instability, more stress. And so being able to not worry about sparing someone else's feelings when yours are being traumatized, I think
Yeah.
is the moment where we have to realize, like, being able to have the hard conversations is what actually is what will lead to healing, is what will alleviate some of that stress, because a lot of times we can internalize that and think, oh, well, I don't want to bother them, right? As women, we can feel that way. Or, oh, it's not that big of a deal, I'll do it myself, because we feel like no one else can do it better. But in essence, we might be able to do it better. But the question is, for how long?
Yeah.
Before we can't do it at all because we're carrying too much, right? And then, of course, the emotional part of how that impacts us, and then our ability to be effective in all the things that we have to, take control of or even be a part of. Um, and that's one of the reasons why, like, when I want to ask this question to people in the chat. So if, as you're listening to this, and if you're, really taking in, what we're talking about tonight, for those of y'all, you all are our inspired tribe. So that's what you all are called. So as the inspired tribe, as you're listening to this tonight, from this one question, I just want to put a pin in it and ask this reflective question: what are your warning signs when you are carrying too much? You need to write it down. Write it down. But what are your warning signs when you are carrying too much, emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually? Do you know what they are? And if you don't, how can you start recognizing them? And then the second question is, how do communities begin releasing collective emotional burdens? Because as we're talking about not just Women's History Month, we just celebrated Black History Month. Well, I had the opportunity a week ago to actually do a Black History keynote virtually to people all over the globe, from Egypt to Dubai to synagogue to not synagogue, Lord Jesus. I'm tired right now, but just to several places, Singapore. There we go. To Singapore, of course, people in the United States, but literally, and in Canada. And one of the things that I got some feedback from people after the presentation was over is that they had never heard of they've heard of some African Americans, but they had never really heard of other blacks around the globe, in their achievements. And one of the things that it from the feedback was it helped them to see themselves. And even the fact that these are people from all the globe, but also they're not just black. And even when we talk about that word black, that has a lot of weight, and I would love for you two to break that down when we're talking about race, because one of the things that I brought up to them was, race is a social construct. It was created, I think in the 1300s to create division. It was a human um, factor that was not based on biology, but it was based off of physical, basically the color of our skin. And based off of that, we were categorized to basically create a hierarchy that is not only fair, but it also creates a division that, again, when we look at all of the things that have happened in our communities, especially in communities of color, it's created a systematic, oppressive behavior and way of life and thinking that even causes us in communities of color to see ourselves as inferior. And even when we're fighting against that, and how we interact with people, how we interact with stress, how we normalize chaos and trauma, it has really caused a lot of havoc. And it hasn't actually been a good thing for anybody, not even people of color, but people who are not. And so when we think about that, can you talk about the word black, or even what race means and how that impacts our wellness in general?
Yeah, you did an excellent job explaining what race is. And unfortunately, the average American believes that race is biological. And that is the first step towards less quality mental health, because you're basing your whole life, your whole thought patterns on something that is not real. So think about that. And we've normalized that. Race is a totally made up ideal that has no valid scientific or genetic credibility. And we use it in almost every system of service and every social practice that we have here in this country. Think about that. And we've normalized it. So that's the first thing. To the word black, this again, what other people don't realize is that it originated from the Spanish word Negro. And it was the European that gave the African that name, which Negro is Spanish for black. And so he stripped us of the ethnicity of the history, because that's where your power lies. Your power lies in where you from, who your people are. When you can disconnect your connection with the greatness before that came before you, you then become pliable. So the primary motivation for the European was to separate the African from his land, which had resources that he wanted. So he replaced it with a physical feature that's all they saw was the change in skin color, and used that to label a whole group of people, and then to justify to their Europeans back at home the brutality that ensued once they relabeled the African.
Mm,
So they did a gaslighting job on the Europeans at home, and they did a gaslighting job on the Africans by making them think that they were inferior, that their customs, their traditions, their beliefs were inferior, and they literally whitewashed Africa.
mm, wow,
Yeah,
wow.
and so then let's bring it a few years after that, or a few generations after that. We started trying to establish an identity for ourselves. James Brown came out with "I'm Black and I'm Proud."
Mm-hmm.
We've been through several different variations of names for our community, from Negro to colored, right? Here's the thing: Black is not any different than Negro.
Mm,
And we still have today people who would rather be called Negro. Yes, even in 2026,
mm,
we still have people today that would rather be referred to as Negro and don't want to be called Black.
mm,
And then we have other people in our community that don't want to be called Negro. They prefer to be called Black. Now the cognitive dissonance there is that they both are the same word.
mm. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. That's so deep. That's so deep. I'm gonna read somebody's comments in the chat. So Lynette says yes, feeling scattered or unfocused, trouble organizing or keeping up with tasks, constant fatigue or feeling drained, feeling emotionally discouraged. Those are the warning signs that when she knows that
Mm.
she's carrying too much. And I think and thank you for sharing that, Lynette, because that is one of the things that we have to be aware of, especially in communities of color, because things happen so quickly that by the time something has been said, and if you've internalized that so much over time, it just becomes, like you said, you normalize it, realizing like you're being traumatized all over again, and how important it is to be careful about our words because, there are higher rates of suicide in communities of color. And when we look at even the disparities of health issues, right, that are happening in our communities. All of those things are all connected to the emotional weight of stress and anxiety, or even microaggression, something that I've talked a lot about that's been a key part of why I do the work that I do because of experiencing microaggressions on jobs where you are overqualified oftentimes, but in order to be seen, uh, to do more work only to be seen only a quarter of what someone's counterpart that is not your, ethnicity. In order to be seen, you have to overwork just to be able to be quote unquote qualified in someone's eyes that doesn't look like you. And that's one of the reasons why we have to take back our narratives, and we have to reimagine what it looks like for us to live a life that not only helps us to have that soft life, right, as we talk about as women, but why it's important for us, whether you are young or old, to be able to have these conversations uh, more readily, not just amongst ourselves in communities of color, but even with those that don't look like us. Because there are people who I don't necessarily believe that someone doesn't know that they're racist or that they are doing some form of prejudice or bias. But I think sometimes, just like in us, it can be very much ingrained when we start taking the victim role or when we're always looking at the lens through color or through race. But they can also live through the lens of privilege and not realize it until someone like us brings it to their attention. And the more that we have these conversations, as tiring as it can be, the better we are to be able to create the kind of environment that all of us can live in. And I think that's a part of the work that we're all called to do. So, even in the work that you both do, how do you use that to create spaces that bring people together um, in the work that you do, if that makes sense?
Well, I can say this, writing with George for the last 3 years, as I've said before, has changed my very perception of how I see myself and the work that I know that I'm called to do now. I grew up in the church, licensed minister, love the church, and nothing against the church because all of these systems, no matter what label they are, they have formed us in some kind of way, right? But particularly, I have to speak from the platform that I know, and that's where my heart and passion intersects with George's work, because until I left the nation and traveled abroad, I could not, I did not realize how blind to the world I was, and just the perception outside of the American construct that I was, right? When you go to other nations, you can see a population of people with a whole different concept of abilities and opportunities, even if they are in the village in the interior of Africa and having survived a civil war, like when I went to Liberia. the very fact of their gratitude just to have some of the smallest things in life, where we're over here with cereal aisles that you can't even choose, is so many you don't know how to choose. But what I learned was the fact that some places that you go, you feel comfortable. I felt very comfortable once I got on the continent, that I'm amongst my people and I wasn't a minority. And that whole feeling was just, oh my goodness. In 2019, I went to Ghana, and I went to the castles, and I saw all of the, I mean, I was like, there's a different world out here, right? And
Yep.
it caused me to know that I come from a place,
Yeah.
and there was a connection there. And I wanted to, as we say now, lean more into that, okay? And so when I'm doing my work, because I know that my people, we know how to be churched, and that's not bad, but there is something that you got to make the connection between your identity, because the Jesus that you were given is not the historical Jesus, right? It is not the factual Jesus. The things that you've been told about what you believe, because you believe a belief, it's just like racism. I saw these parallels. Racism is a belief. We believe a belief.
Yep.
This thing about race and color. And so when your mind is now open, you can't unknow what you know, right? And you can't stop thinking like that. So my work intersects on that, where I bring the parallels between the work that George does and the faith-based community, because we've been lulled asleep. And as long as we stay quote unquote black, okay, we're
Let
gonna
me
always get what
that.
black
Yes.
brings
All
us.
asleep.
Yeah.
Yes. Or better yet,
So
this one. Yeah.
that
That
part.
part.
Right. So I'm passionate about this thing, because far too long we said, George knows I have this thing, and I say it again: when you allow another one to define your worth, you make them your God, right? And so we've allowed this nation, this construct of racism, to define our worth, and they have become our God, to the point that our children are walking around aimless, lost, with no hope and no understanding of what their tomorrow can even be.
Mm.
And that's really our fault, right?
Wow.
It's
Wow.
really our fault. So that's where my work comes to bring us to a place of awareness. Wake up and use what's in you. The kingdom is within us, right? But the
Yeah.
identity is key. How are you identifying?
Yes, I love that. I love that. And to that matter, I real quickly, before we wrap up, and I do want to mention a couple other people. So shout out to Miss Charlene. She said my warning sign is I get angry and I snap at people over the smallest things. And that's good. Thank you for sharing that, Charlene, because that's one of the things that we have to remember, is that we have to be aware of ourself, and we have to teach that to the next generation, because what's happening right now, when you think about places or people that are literally looking for opportunities to pounce on people of
Yes,
color over
yes.
the smallest things, right?
I'm
Like
so
you can
glad you said
literally
that.
be
Yes.
justified in your anger, but it's like, oh, you got angry, but you provoked me though. Oh, but you got angry though. And it's like we have to be in control of our emotions, so that when we are in spaces, one of the things that I loved, I had an opportunity to interview Erica Alexander, aka Maxine Shaw, off of the 90s show Living Single, for Black History Month. And one of the things I loved about what she said is we have to know when to when to hold our peace, because we
Yes.
can literally become emotionally exhausted in our fight for justice, that we don't have the energy to fight when it's necessary. And that's one of the reasons why it's important for us to understand our warning signs, our triggers, and then also too from the therapy piece of that. As I speak with clients about being self-aware, but also understanding what are the solutions, right? What are the coping skills? Because we all cope, not necessarily healthy, but we all cope. But the question is, how can we start coping in healthier ways, so that we can not only do it for ourselves, but model it for the next generation who's coming after us, so that we don't live, like George said, in a state of normalizing trauma or normalizing toxicity. And so, to that manner, as we wrap up, so George, can you tell us real quickly about your magazine, Deconstructing Race, and how people can engage with this work?
Yeah. Oh, so we both just happen to have our copies here. This is the first. This is the inaugural issue, and it is the theme for this first issue is challenging whiteness, and I want to make a distinction here: challenging whiteness, not white people. There's
Mm,
a difference
love it.
uh, because there is no such thing as white people and black people. That those are fictional labels. And so, if you're going to improve your mental health, you have to grapple with that first. Because as long as you believe that your identity is the color of your skin, you're going to end up getting racial outcomes. So, this magazine, and it's important to know that racial outcomes are never equal, they're never fair, and they're never healthy. So, this magazine is a combination of academics and philosophers, writers, poets. They represent a cross section of America who are on a like mind about addressing the falsity of race. The tagline is examining race as a social belief, not a biological fact.
Mm,
So the reason that we put this in magazine form is because this is highly spiritual. What is that? The scripture of our the weapons. Our weapons are not.
Carnal.
Finish somebody. Our weapons are
Mm, the
not
weapons
carnal, right?
are
carnal.
not
But a mighty through God to the
Right.
pulling down the stronghold. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We're not in a physical battle. We're in a mental battle. We're in
Mm-hmm.
a battle. We're in a battle of ideology, and
Yes.
the ideology is whiteness versus humanity.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to counteract this battle, we want to physically react. That's a losing game. It's predictable. We have to get proactive and go back to the source of our true power. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So you have to bring it back there. Uh, in order to counteract this aggressive assault on our community and on our country of whiteness, we have to come back with an ideological weapon of education, of self-reflection, which will lead to application. If you don't have the right information, everything else you do is going to go wrong. Uh, and you know the definition of insanity, right? And that's what we've been doing.
doing
So that's what this magazine.
so.
This is not exciting reading, but it's important reading,
It is.
and it is for those who are ready to step up their thinking game. We have to do better than thinking no more than a fifth grader. We
Mm,
need to come from that. We need to rise up because the attack on us is psychological.
it
And
is.
if you're not willing to step up your psychological ability, you're going to be sheep for everybody else.
Mm,
So this is why this magazine exists. It's important. It's not something just for fun. It's not something just to relax and chill with. This is to gird up your mental armor. You need this. You need to challenge your mind. You need to understand that we're walking in a matrix delusion of race.
mm,
And we're not going to beat race by using race. You beat race by stepping outside of race.
That's
that's
right.
good. And that in
That's
of
right.
itself is a strategy. That is, when you think about the weapons of our warfare, it starts with the mind. And a
That's
lot
it.
of times when we feel attacked, whether that's externally or internally, it attacks the mind. So when we say I'm feeling depressed or I'm feeling anxious or I'm feeling sad, or the things that sometimes that we can tell ourselves, that, not saying that it's not true, but if we have to, even when I was talking about the moment mantra, about being able to speak things even if you don't feel it, even if you don't see it, the more that you say it, it can be true of your reality, but it starts with the way that you think. So I love that you said that. And then if you could share also, Evelyn, tell us about sacred maps and the healing spaces that you've created and how people can get in touch with you on that.
Okay, thank you. Sacred Maps and Healing Spaces is my counter to George's Join the Conversation. We create a sacred space where I show the history of how we got here, right? And I bring it home between balancing history and scripture, right? And I help people to see how the transformation happened where we became a people that we no longer recognized, where we took on other people's names and other people's identities just to survive the experience, right? Much like we talk about now. So I create a space where people can have that conversation with me on a spiritual level, right? Because we're spirit, soul, and body. George is definitely academic and therapeutic, and that's a space for that. But when you have people who they have that spiritual intuition about them, they need to have that kind of language. So basically that's what I do. I keep the knowledge the same, but I use the language that people can identify with. And you can just follow me at evelynrai.com. I deal a lot with grief because that's my story. I'm going to be releasing some courses in another book about grief and just overcoming trauma and loss. But that is a real thing right now. People are losing jobs, careers, hopes for homes, and just many different types of losses. So they can reach me there at evelynray.com. They can find me on social media. Grief to Grace is on Amazon. But yes, I think the beautiful thing about where I am right now is that I can walk with George, with you and others, that our eyes of understanding are open now, right? And we don't have to apologize because it's the truth. The truth is never popular, but it is the truth, right? And that is the one thing that will set us free. I'm tired of being enslaved to this construct that has totally decimated my people and our humanity. So I'll stop right there. But thank
Oh,
you.
that's good. That's good. Now, George, you mentioned the magazine. Where can people get it?
It is available online at deconstructingrace.com.
Not
I'm
dot
sorry, no,
net.
.net. Deconstructingrace.net. Um, so it's we really would appreciate your support. We have it's a bi-monthly, so the next edition will be coming out in March, mid-March. This first edition is challenging whiteness. This second edition is challenging blackness,
Mhm.
and that's going to be a really eye-opening edition, and we really want you all to support, to get exposed to this new thought paradigm.
I love it. I love it. Well, again, I thank you both for coming on. As we close out tonight, I just want to leave everybody with a couple of just points for all of us to think about, reflect on, and to take action. Because a conversation like this doesn't mean much if we're not willing to put action to it. And so, one, I definitely want to encourage you all to get in touch with Evelyn and George and the work that they're doing and support what they're doing. We'll have more information for you to also hear more about what they do and how you can stay connected to them. Also, I want to encourage you all, for those of you that have not heard of this, and I see one of our members on here, Charlene, tonight. Thank you for joining. But if you have not heard of our Building with Purpose Mind, Body, and Soul program, it is a community that is not only online, but it also gives us a space where we can have more of these conversations in depth, where we have people that come on from our podcast to be able to answer questions that you might have or maybe wrestling with. But even more so, being able to have resources to help you go deeper and to be accountable, to have community and support as you walk through that journey of being able to build with purpose, mind, body, and soul. So you can find more information on the website, again, which is www.inspiredonpurposeservices.com. And then, of course, if you haven't, get your tickets to Quiche and Conversations. It will be on Friday, March 27th, from 6 to 9 p.m. You can get the information for that on my website as well. But it's going to be an evening of poetry, healing conversation like this, music, food, community connection, and for us to be able to walk away with some action steps as a community, how we can heal together. So make sure that you come out, encourage others to come as well. And then tonight, as we talk about this reminder of how we can release what no longer serves us, the goal that I want everybody to remember is growth requires release. We
Yes.
cannot grow if we don't release things. So I kind of put it like this. If you have your hand open and you literally have nothing in it, you can put things in it and you can take things out of it. But when your hand is closed, you can't put anything in it and you can't take anything out of it. And what you're holding on to could literally kill you. It could be toxic, it could be dysfunctional, it could be chronic, it could be all of these things. But when we open our hands, even if we don't know what the future will hold, even if the idea of not living in toxicity and chaos seems scary because that's what you know. But when you open your hand and release yourself to be in spaces where you can start having healing conversations, where you can share in a safe space these kinds of conversations to find healing and grow, it allows you to be able to not only move into the next season that you were purposed and called to, but it allows you to let go of emotional weight. It allows you to change your belief systems. It allows you to let go of unhealthy expectations that have been put on you. And it allows you to release emotional burdens that don't serve you. And so tonight, what not only George and Evelyn shared, but even the wisdom, even in your conversations, even in what you shared tonight, I hope that you all remember to not just stay connected, but to make sure that you stay intentional in your healing and in your growth, and that you cultivate gratitude, growth, and healing every single day. And so, in our mantra, again, as we close out tonight, just to say this to yourself, if you got to say it as many times as possible until it becomes true of you, I want you all to remember this one thing, and that is this: I release what no longer serves my healing, my peace, or my purpose. So tonight, without any reservations, without any hesitation, I want you to keep that in your spirit this week. I want you to remember that it is a part of your purpose, but more importantly, it is where you will find not only your growth and your healing, but where you'll be able to share that with someone else so that they can experience it too. Because there's nothing greater than being in a space where not only you're healthy, but the people around you are too. So thank you, George and Evelyn, for coming on. I want to give a shout out to everybody that was on here tonight. Shout out to Bonnie. She says this was a very impactful, relevant, and essential message from everyone on the panel. Much needed peace, blessings, and service. Hands, yellow heart. Oh, okay, that was emoji. Thank you all for your presence tonight. Shout out to Charlene, Lynette, the speaker box, Sylvia, and many others that were on here. And if you are just listening, you didn't say anything tonight, I thank you for also coming on here tonight. But as we close, we got to play a song because, that's what we do. So this is encouraged to all of us, no matter what you're going through, to be optimistic because if there's anything that I want to encourage anybody with all the stuff that's going on, Lord Jesus, with all the stuff that's going on, Lord knows we got to be optimistic because
That's
literally
it.
everything starts in the mind. So this
Yeah.
is a shout out.
Normalize dysfunction.
That's right. Don't normalize it, y'all. This is
Don't
for y'all.
normalize
So
it.
shout out to y'all. We're gonna groove out to this before we wrap up. Here we go. Thank y'all. Y'all remember, optimism, no matter what you're going through, no matter what you're feeling, no matter what you're gonna face tomorrow. Remember, optimism, there is hope. So long as you got breath in your body.
When in the midst of sorrow, you can see a friend.
Good,
Yeah, I hope
Patrice. That's
tonight that
good.
you all were encouraged. I'm so inspired by you, Evelyn and George, and the work
Yeah.
that you're doing. It is an ongoing conversation. So make sure that y'all share this video with others so they can be inspired to have lasting change because it's just the beginning, y'all. We got work to do, but we got to make sure that our bodies and our minds and our souls and our spirits are intact so we can do the work. So y'all be good.
Okay.
Y'all be safe. Y'all be inspired on purpose. Love y'all. Good night.
Thank you, Patrice. We appreciate you. Have a great one. God
You too.
bless everybody.